venture value kind of like slowly ticks up over time, right? Because like, you're doing this work and then that work gets valued and then somebody else comes in and raises a new round and, you hopefully can defend your pro rata, yada, yada. So it does create a lot of compounding value, but it's, and it's relatively fast, but compared to crypto, it's unbelievably slow. Whereas in crypto, quarter over quarter, you have these swings that I've personally never ever seen. Like I was telling you this story yesterday. We own something, which I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's a crypto thing. And our NAV, I had to mark my book up $1 billion net asset value on that asset. I had to mark it up because, we have to submit to our auditors and just keep an accurate sense of what our book value is. $1 billion in a quarter. I've never seen that in my entire investing career. And here's what it does to me and my whole team. I have a budget for next year of how much I want to spend. Instantly, that number goes up. And what it really means is I'm probably just going to be getting the same ownership, but I'm just going to be paying more for it. And if I'm going through that, I think everybody's going to go through it. And what it's going to do is like all of these returns are great. All of these increases are great, but I'm not sure that there's going to be that much more progress. There's not necessarily going to be that many more startups because it's just harder and harder to find good things for the same number of GPs in a place. And costs are going bananas. Salaries are off the charts. I don't know if you guys saw, but Stripe, for example, there was a tweet about how Stripe's starting to pay like starting engineers $280K. I don't know if that's true or not, but there was a tweet in Twitter. And I thought to myself, my gosh, like 20 years ago, a starting engineering salary was 50, 60K in the Bay Area. And so you've seen this incredible price inflation. So it's actually quite good. Again, it's sort of what we talked about yesterday. All of these gains eventually come back around and get recaptured. And so I think like you're starting to see the beginning of this really incredible cycle of wealth transfer, essentially. So the funds may make it, but it's going to come back to the founders.
Let me ask you a question about the crypto stuff. Is there any worry there that these valuations match reality? Because you might have a very small float on these, a lot of excitement, and they're not actually products being used by customers in the real world.
Here's the thing. Because it's an internal permanent pool of capital, I have no legal requirement to actually mark, okay? But the reason we do it is because we want to track NAV, NAV, and book value, okay? And, I compensate my team based on how well we compound book value. But you're right. It's a huge problem because I don't know how to get liquid on these things. And so you see this thing sitting on your balance sheet and you're like, what do we do with this? How do you move it around? You cannot. And so I would rather, there's a great guy. He was an early pioneer of private equity. And he had this phrase, which he said like, the best way to mark up a deal is right at the end. So if you put in, $10 million into a Series A, if you could be allowed, the best thing to do would be carry that at a $10 million value right until the minute you get liquid, because then you don't go through the psychological roller coaster ride of having to go through these marks. Because then when these marks come back down, Jason, to your point, there'll be a quarter where we give back that $1 billion of NAV, maybe,